people mostly really do come, they dismiss all the personal stuff and they want to talk to the audience. And the two common things, one is you're good enough.
Yeah.
You're good enough just like you are. You're okay. You're good. And if you're in a bad place, it's going to get better. You got to ride it out. And there is going to be a tunnel light, and it won't always be the train. It might be the train. You might be up for another go in the barrel. But there is going to be, this too shall pass. And for me, it's been powerful that, you're good enough and it'll be okay. It's going to be okay. No matter how dark things. And I think we talked about the suicides, and I think those are important messages for people that are struggling mentally.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm really excited today. I have Mr. Ken Stearns here. And instead of me just telling you what he does, I'm going to let him tell you what he does. So, Ken,
Kyle,
the floor is yours.
my friend, thank you for having me on the show, first off. And,
My pleasure.
And enjoyed the pre-chat. It was great. A Chicago boy
awesome.
and a Chicago boy and a Texas boy. We can we can get on the call and become best buddies in a few minutes. I love that.
Yeah.
Just back to our pre-chat a little bit, which is, no matter how divided the world feels at times, the reality is we are all a lot closer than we think, or at least than the media or the news would like us to think. We are absolutely a lot closer. So my name is Ken Stearns, and right now, I can say now at this point, I'm a writer, a podcaster, a lyricist, a life hack. It's kind of my, I'm still learning, a work in progress, if you will. So I'm a Chicago boy, and I do have a little bit of Southern in me. When I was 18, I went down to South Carolina. So I graduated a Gamecock. So I lived in the South for a few years, and then I ended up in LA, got married, had some kids. And about 2000, with that, a 6 and a 12-year-old, six and a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, packed up the family and moved to Asia. So I lived it was I was an insurance guy, and I had a particularly freaky set of skills that they were looking for to grow some markets in Asia. And I found this early internet days. I found an ad. And, one thing led to another. And next thing I knew, I was living in Hong Kong. And it was an amazing run. I went for 2 years. I came back 20 years later. I'm not really sure what happened, Kyle. Not sure what happened. But I ended up living in several countries. And, I got to my 50s and started, I was in that corporate life. And for anybody listening that's in corporate life, it's brutal. There's a lot of great things that happen there, but it's also a tough job. And I don't think it really matters where you're at. There's politics. There's disappointments. There's regrets. There's happiness. There's amazing moments. And I went through all of those. I had a great career, but facing the idea of signing another contract when I was going to be 59. Basically, I was 59, and it was that, what are you going to do? And I had kids in the U.S. My kids had gone back, obviously, college and everything, post-college. I had grandkids, and I just thought, man, time to get home. I have to get home. I need an exit strategy. So, there's, and because it's tough. I'm an Asia expert. I have zero transferable skills in my business to America. I'd say not zero, but people would look at me as a zero. Right, because they couldn't understand what I did and translate that to applying at a U.S. job. So it's like, and I didn't want to work with corporate. So I was really struggling. But I had started the journey a bit before that. I had these kind of parallel paths, like independent things, just running. And I was playing guitar, which I had never done. I played music as a kid, but I had been away for a long, long time. And I bought a guitar with the intention, I'm going to give it 2 years and I'm going to try. And that way I could buy a nice guitar. So I spent a lot of money and I bought the good guitar because I promised myself I'd try. And I tried and I did okay. And I had this great teacher, and he kept saying, we should write a song. We should write a song. And every
All
week he'd
right.
come. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that's, yeah, fuck, I can barely play. Who's talking about writing a song? I can't even play where I even like it. My fingers still hurt. I suck. And but I had started a book. So I had two book ideas. I had started, during my travels on planes and stuff. I spent a lot of time alone. You read alone, you're traveling a lot, you're reading alone, you're reading a lot, you're alone a lot. And I had a chance to write. And I had this idea called Dear Dad. And
All
the
right.
idea was to write letters to my father about things that happened in my life because he had passed away when I was about 27, 28. So a lot of adult guy stuff that I'd want to call my father. I got fired. Mom died. Um, your grandfather again. I just got this amazing job. What do I do in this situation? And so, these were dear dads. Dear dad, mom died. In the blah blah blah. Dear dad, your funeral. The first one was your funeral. And so, but that just got buried. It was just ideas, and they were, I had some good drafts in there. But I also started another one. Of course, this is going to fail me because of the stupid. Let's see how that works. No, that's never going to work. I'll
Won't
figure
show
that
up
out
on the
later.
screen.
I'll fix that in a minute. So I started the next book at the same time visiting my mom, called Dear God.
Oh.
And so this is something we didn't cover in the pre-chat now, so it'll be a surprise to you. So it's called Dear God, and it was letters to God, and it was really kind of, what do you do? I was raised Catholic. I lived in a no faith country in Asia, a couple of countries with zero God. God was not a thing.
Right.
I lived in a Hindu country, a Muslim country, a Buddhist country. And so, I believed everything and nothing all at the same time. And I was lost, spiritually lost. Not lost because I didn't feel like I wanted to be anywhere, but I just didn't have any spiritual kind of bearing other than be a good human. So I started writing this book, and it had these 4 parts to it. First part is, self, ourselves, and talking about your yesterdays, your todays, and your tomorrows. Battlefield of your mind, how you think about those things and talk to yourself about your past, your present, and what's never going to happen in your future, or what you hope to happen, what you're trying to manifest, or what you're trying to not manifest. And then there's a book of others, kind of between 2 people: acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. Really good tool sets, good things to hone your skills around those 3 areas between you and directly with another person. Kind of.
Right.
And the third part was humanity, kind of an overall, kind of an arching thing, and that's love, karma, and service. Love is a beautiful thing, and then karma, being basically the golden rule, and then service, being in service of others, not just a charity way, but a much broader term. And then the last one was a book of you, and that would be God, or spiritual, being, or the creator, or the universe, whatever your spiritual spectrum is. And that is faith, hope, and prayer. And so there's just 12 topics in the book. And the guitar playing, writing music, I ran out of words, draft me words. So I had to pick up the book and start writing the book again. So I ended up finishing the book because of the guitar. Which is
Well, that's interesting.
A really bizarre outcome. And then somehow the book and this idea to be a podcaster kind of came together. And not quite clear where it all happened, but somehow I ended up with this idea. And we talked earlier about stuff. It's not really my idea. I'm comfortable in saying that. I'm doing somebody else's work. And
gotcha.
So it's this weird thing that I write this book called Dear God, where I'm really asking him in questions. Do I have this right? Is my past meaning like this? Is this how I'm supposed to look at it? What about love, God? Isn't love like this? Isn't faith like this? And I'm asking him all these questions. That guy, the gall of that guy to send me on this stupid podcast to run around the country and ask people these questions. So we talked about the unintended I didn't know that I was going to have a consequence for doing all this, right? The unintended. So I ended up I used the book and I created let me just turn that off real quick because it's gonna. I think I can find that somewhere. So here's the jar,
Okay.
and this has got 444 questions in it.
Wow.
And that's what the guest sees. The guest gets to reach in there and pull some questions out. And so they all come from the book. I'll just read like 3 or 4 real quick, just so
Sure.
the audience can get an idea that the style of question. Can humanity live in peace together? Does God have faith in us? Have you ever had a conversation with someone who's homeless and living on the streets? Where does hope begin? For example, with knowledge, actions, with prayer? Who's a person you admire most because of how they treat people? So it's a really interesting conversation with somebody. We sit down, we have a little pre-chat, and then we open up the jar, and their story comes out through the jar. Through those questions, the kind of person they are, their belief system, their how they came to be this at this moment, everything comes out through the stories, through the questions. And it's interesting because I get to watch people, and as a listener, you get to listen. They're crystallizing things that have been in their mind that they think about, right? These are all everything in there is stuff you could absolutely you think about, you see it, and but you have to actually articulate what you believe or what you feel. It's really powerful for people to go through it. And I'm just blessed, man. I'm super blessed to be sitting there watching it. Like you, on the other side, sometimes you're going, am I really doing this? This is so cool. I'm meeting amazing people. And I've met so many, like we talked, I've met amazing people. And it's all through this. And so I can get the title back. So that's the book. And and I haven't, I'm not selling the book. The book it's kind of weird. I call it the accidental title, or the unfortunate title. Actually, is what I call is the unfortunate title, which is kind of embarrassing. And I'm trying to get my head around it and embrace it. Because it is, we talked earlier, right, about being, that when you have God, as soon as you have God in anything today, there's an immediate assumptions placed and all kinds of things happen in people's minds about who you are and what you're about. And so that, the title, even though it's not a book, it's not a religious book, it's not a preaching book, it's not a conversion book or anything. Actually, it's very little to do with religion, but a lot to do with God. Obviously, because every letter starts with "Dear God," but it's interesting because I'm still trying to get my head around the fact that I wrote the book and the fact that I had that title, and not be shy about it in a way. It's kind of a strange phenomenon for me. I'm still trying to wrap my head around, but I'm super in love with it and the whole concept. And so and that's what I've been doing. So that's what I've been doing. So the ideas came together. The book, using the book for the questions for this podcast, and getting a jar. And the idea is last April, I kicked it off on April 4th to start the journey of 111 cities and to interview 444 people through the jar, and sit down and do, for an hour and a half of, questions, let them tell their story. And that was kind of my mission, was everybody's got a story. Let's go, let's listen to their story. Real people and real conversations is kind of one of the taglines. And so I got about halfway through. I'm here in Atlanta, and I made it through about 60 cities. I got about 200 interviews done. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's
You have been
crazy.
busy.
60 cities is the other part, right? Every 4 days, I'm pulling up my tent spikes and moving to the next town. It's pretty wild. It's a pretty wild journey. So that's where I'm at. It's kind of a little bit about who I am and what I'm doing.
Misconception that I think a lot of people have is that they think that only famous people have a good story to tell.
Oh yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I've had some famous folks on the show, and they do have some good stories to tell. And some of them, I don't know if they don't want to get in a lot of detail, but some of just didn't have much struggle to get where they were at.
Mm.
But I will get some people on you'd never heard of this person in your life, but they will have a story that will just sometimes leave you in tears.
Um,
I had a lady come on that she had, you know, the the R word done to her,
mm,
molested by a family member, beaten, just all these terrible things. Got through it, but ended up with a disease that is literally killing her. In fact, she I think she only had a few months left to live, and she came on my show to tell her story and to
damn.
talk about her book. And yet she was still positive. And if anybody on this planet had a reason to be bitter
Yeah. Yes.
and complain, you would not have blamed her whatsoever. But she refused to complain. All she wanted to do was help other people. And that's another thing. I was raised that to help others, to be in
Yes.
service of other
Yes.
people.
Yeah.
And now the sentiment seems to be just focus on me, look at me. It's all about me. What do I want? My needs outweigh everybody else's. And that's just not the way reality is.
Agreed. And I don't know when we took that turn, but we are there.
I
I
don't
have
get it, man.
same, I just listened. It's funny you talk about the rape story and then the disease as a result of it. I literally just wrote the notes for a gentleman that I interviewed, and he was raped at 4.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, his story was so powerful. I mean, he's such a good person, and he ended up with colon cancer, and I'm sure you could
Man.
imagine it's, his polyps and everything else. So, it sure is some kind of damage, has to be connected. Um, but the guy's just got a positive attitude. He talks humorously about his bag. He's got a colostomy bag, and he talks about, when it leaks and the stuff that happens, and shit just goes, and he just talks about, it's just he's accepted that this is what life is for him, and he's just such a good human. And hearing his story is almost like, just crushes your soul in some way.
Yeah.
Is that he should be a bitter motherfucker
Uh-huh. Well, that when that lady came on, it's the first time that I started crying
on
on
the show.
on the
Yeah.
show. And it literally broke my heart. If you didn't have any feelings
Mm,
for this lady, then you just have no feelings. You don't have a heart at all.
it's
But
just tough. It is one. How do you do that? How do you protect yourself from some of these? Because I mean, you don't know when you open up the window who's on the other side. I mean, you can get a
mm,
view on LinkedIn or from their profile, but you don't really know what it's going to be like when they talk. Um, do you, because like those things will stick with you, like that,
no,
those conversations, they have an impact, right? And I don't know where
yeah.
it resides in our soul or in our body, but shaking off some of those. Do you have any advice for me? You've been
She's
doing this for a few years now.
Man, I honestly don't know what to tell you. Sometimes you just get that one person that they do their soul just seems to attach to you, and you
Yes.
never forget that. Of course, occasionally you get a little selfish and you feel sorry for yourself for one reason or another, and that might slip your mind. But don't forget it. That's what I say. Don't forget it. It's a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing. It's a
Yeah, it's a
reminder
good
of,
point.
look, I don't have it as bad as I think I do. You know?
Yeah. I mean, even you've got some, I mean, your medical story is not very pretty either. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody got a reason to be bitter, you might have a little bit of a reason to be bitter.
You know, I could have taken that path. I really could have. I
You
mean,
you were on that path, I think, in a way.
I was self-destructive for a long time.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's, I mean, you were already on, you got off that train somehow. You could have got back on.
well, I share my story because I don't. It's not. I don't want anybody feeling sorry for me whatsoever. You know? What's happened to me is happened to someone else out there, and I'm
Yeah.
not special by any means. But I share my story because I want those who have had something exactly like that happen to them or similar to know that there's hope, that you can have a better mindset, that you can be successful. And I've always been open about the fact that I was molested when I was a child. And I think that's what's kind of set me on my direction of self-destruction, depression. I've fought.
Truly, it's a real
Yeah.
thing. It's very much connected.
I mean, I've suffered from depression since I was a child. I'd blocked that out for a long time, and I got into the drinking and the drugs and partying all the time, whoring around, just doing everything in the world I could to end myself, basically. And I'm here for a reason. I am here for a reason. There was several times I should have died. I've been shot. I've had a heart attack. I've got,
I missed the I've been shot story.
yeah, I don't tell that one very often because it was something stupid. But
Well, of course.
if it had just been that much more
yes.
over, I wouldn't be here right now. And I don't understand why I'm here other than God has a use for me. And I hope and I pray that I'm doing what he wants me to do.
Yeah. Beautiful.
My father died when I was 27. He overdosed.
Me, yeah. Oh, okay. Unlike me.
2 years later, my brother hung himself.
Fuck.
And I had a couple of friends that they ended themselves in different ways. One electrocuted himself, another one shot himself. I mean, there's just story after story. All these people around me were dying, and I had survivor's guilt for some reason. I'm like, they're gone. Why am I still here? I should be the one that's gone.
Right.
And I've went over everything with you before the show, but basically when it all came down to where I changed was because I had kids to raise, and I had to be there for them. And that's why I said we're supposed to be serving others. Look, when I was just serving myself, I was destroying myself. But then when I was serving others, that's when I got cleaned up and started living life in a healthier way, because I needed to be here for them. I was living for them and not for me.
How's the relationship with the kids? Were you able to save it after all that?
My relationship with the kids now are a lot better than what it was back then.
Yeah.
My boys don't show it as much, but my daughter, as much as she loves me and we still talk and everything, but I can tell sometimes she's still resentful. She just tries not to show it too much.
Too more sensitive. And the boys, they don't care. They'll show it.
Yeah. My youngest son, he's blunt and to the point. And he said, you know what, Dad, it's over with. You apologize. Let's move on. I'm not worried about it anymore. You shouldn't worry about it anymore. And I beat myself up over it all the time. And
you grandpa yet?
I am grandpa 3 times.
Jeez. See, then none of it matters now. You're a grandpa. You got grandkids. You got a chance to do it. It's weird. We get a second chance with the grandkids. As long as we haven't fooked it up too bad with the kids, you got a chance to be a good human with the grandkids.
Yeah, I definitely spoil the heck out of them. That's for sure. All 3 boys, and the youngest one's 3. He lives here with us right now. My daughter back in Houston, she's got 2 boys, and the youngest one's 7, the oldest one's 12, and they don't recognize me because as much as I spoiled them, I didn't spoil them that way.
Well, they're far away. They're in Houston. Oh, this is too funny.
Yeah, but we get to pump them full of candy and send them back to mama. So, that's the best part of being a grandparent.
That is the best part. Yeah. Yeah. The best part. Apparently my granddaughter is still talking about the time I babysat and we pulled the candy tray down out of the kitchen shelf and I put it on the floor and I said, go at it all you want. And we're watching TV till midnight.
There you go.
Of course, she was asleep by 8 on the couch after all the sugar.
Had that crash, right?
She had 2 candy bars, ran around the house for about 15 minutes, watched a show, and passed out. But all she can remember is the thought of all the candy you can eat, and that I think that just blew her mind. It's a great technique.
Even though our journey is different, we still have the same goal in mind, which is helping other people and getting other folks' stories out there. And when you first got out on the road, well, number one, where was the first city that you visited?
Yeah, so I started in I've got this 111 cities to plan for, and I'm gonna stay in the continental 48. So I kind of had to pick this route, this kind of, some kind of where are you going to go? How do you, what's the plan? And so I got a van. I didn't also explain I have a van. So I got this big ass van with a jar painted on the side and all my gear inside. I don't sleep in it, but it's a travel van. It's my buddy. It's my partner. And so I started in Olympia, Washington. It was my first city. And then I went really just up and down the north, all the states in the north half, and made it all the way to Maine, all the way across to Maine, and then did a big of a zigzag down the East Coast. So I finished. I'm taking a break here in Atlanta. I parked the van back in December, and then went back to see the grandkids, see my daughters, see some friends because I had been on the road quite heavily, and take a break and just kind of pull back a little bit and pull back. So I started in Olympia. My first guest was Pastor Carl.
Oh, wow.
He was great. He was great. He was a college friend of mine's, his pastor. So I stayed with a college friend in Olympia, and he set me up with his pastor as a first guest. And Pastor Carl, it was a great interview. I actually still really fond of that one. Even as my first one, I didn't really know what I was doing. No idea. Even on the sound, I was okay on the sound. I didn't screw anything up too bad. It came out really good. And Pastor Carl grew up an atheist.
Wow.
He's got a great journey. Grew up completely an atheist, and his family story is fantastic. His growing up story. And then, ultimately searching for answers. He was searching for answers. And it led him to the Mormon church. He didn't last long there. And then he found his own way and became a pastor. It's kind of a non-denominational church, but Christian, very Christian. And it was a great guy. And actually, it's kind of interesting. Fun story with Carl. We finished. It was a great. I mean, we really bonded. It was a really. It was powerful for me because my first interview. It showed me proof of life.
Yeah.
I had done all this crazy shit and moved my whole. I had quit a corporate career. I was doing good, and I quit all of that to do this crazy ass stupid thing of running around in a van, driving around talking to people. People thought I was nuts. I thought I was nuts. I'm still nuts.
Yeah.
But
we all have to be a little nuts to do what we do.
Yeah. To show to corporate work, you got to be nuts. To be a cashier at McDonald's, you got to be a little bit nuts, right? We all got, man, God bless those people that show up to work every day right now. I just had this conversation with my daughter. Anybody showing up to work right now, God bless you, man. And anybody showing up to work behind a counter facing humanity, God, man.
Our pharmacy right down the road was closed the other day because they couldn't get enough people to come to work.
If you're going to work and you're showing up and you're listening to this story, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I mean, and I'm sorry for all the people you have to face that are idiots, especially if you're behind a counter.
Yeah.
And so, I did my interview with Carl. It was great. We finished, and he said, "I want to give you something." I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess okay, but you don't. It's not. You don't have to give me anything." And he says, "See," he looks at me, he goes, "Do you have a Bible?" I said, "Well, Carl, no, I don't. I don't have a Bible." And he said, "Well, let me find you a Bible. I got more than 40 Bibles in my office." Of course he does, right?
Nice.
And so he searched it, and he stumbled around for a second. He goes, "Oh, I got it." And he, went right to a spot, and he found the book. It was the book for me. Been waiting there for me. Nothing, no writing in it. Never been really used. Just a, perfectly clean book. And when he's giving it to me, I was pretty emotional, right? It's a pretty heavy. It's quite a gift for a stranger. And I realized I had never been given a Bible.
Wow.
So it was my first Bible. Even I was growing up, I was
Mm.
Catholic. I was an altar boy. We don't do Bibles in Catholic. You don't study the Bible. So it's quite
Mm.
interesting. So that was my first interview. It was in Olympia, and my next guest was just about the opposite of that. Candace Mercer. She was a left. I'll say a left wing because that sounds political, but she was she's very liberal. Was
Mhm.
very liberal. Very much an activist. Very much behind BLM, Antifa, Palestinian organization, and their rights. And her story is wild because she ended up getting sideways with her constituency, and ultimately be called a fascist. And she ran because of that. She ran for city council, and then Antifa showed up to bust up her event, but she had already aligned herself by the. So this story is so crazy. It's hard, and I'm giving you the compressed version because it's just so bananas. And Antifa showed up to disrupt her city councilwoman run, and but it was okay because she had already aligned herself with the Proud Boys.
Uh-oh.
And so at her city event, this was in the news several years, maybe if not that long ago. But this Proud Boy got shot named Tiny. One of there's a famous incident that a guy ended up getting shot. There was a big scrum between the two gangs, and this guy named Tiny got shot at her event. And I met that, and I knew that event in my mind. I'd read about it, and it was funny. I'm like interviewing Candace. She was she's
Wow.
such a baller, man. This is just a great, and she's in chronic pain. She's a
Oh.
very interesting person. I mean, like a powerhouse woman, right? Small, squat, but like energy and passion and super smart. And just as much as this little, teeny little fireball, but she's got this chronic pain condition where basically if she's laying it's her whole body is in pain, like chronically. She's like, yeah, she's like, I don't sleep. She goes, I sleep for like, if I get 90 minutes, I'm like, that's a bonus. She goes, but I wake up and I'm in pain. I got to move. I got to shift. I got to stand up. I walk around. I got to, take a bath or whatever. This is terrible, like physically the pain, but the person, you'd never know it. You talk to her, listen to her, never complains. Just, this is the facts. This is what my situation is, and I'm dealing with it. And don't be sorry for me. There's people worse than me.
I find it ironic that the anti-fascism people they use fascistic ways to get their point across.
Yeah.
I don't think most people that use that word even know what it really means.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's the best part of the meme. I mean, it's a meme in itself.
Right? Just
Right.
like when the ones that use the racists and white supremacy, that they have no idea what that really means. They don't. They throw the word around so much, and it really doesn't have any meaning behind it anymore anyway.
Yeah, it just becomes a meme for me at this point, right? Because it's like you said, it's so out of context. And
We're gonna
so
fight racism by being racist.
that's my I always gives me pause. Why don't we just treat everybody, like you said, the absence of color. As soon as you inject color into a conversation, it's I don't know, it's not racist, but it's just not the right way to do it. I prefer to like Martin Luther King said, man, judge me by the character,
The
who I
content of
am.
my character.
Yeah.
Right.
how I
Exactly.
act, not what I say, how I act. Character, really, the character is really all about who you are and who you know, how you manifest your behavior in life. I'm a
Hmm.
fan of that. I'm a fan
Yeah.
of that.
Well, you know, I had brought up the fact that we're both trying to help other people, and the one way that you get to someone is through their heart.
Absolutely.
And that's the only way to get to someone is through their heart. And what better way when you have someone that comes up and tells their story? I mean, this touches the heart. If it doesn't touch your heart, like I said before, you don't have one.
Hmm.
So the stories, of course, they're going to vary from person to person. But is there anything that you kind of see that everyone has in common?
Yeah, interesting. We didn't talk about this before. I think, I mean, so I'll do the plus and the minus. There's a couple things I want to maybe highlight on this. One is at the end of every conversation. So I think for people listening, you know, one important thing, the message that I always ask people at the end of the hour, an hour and a half, I always ask, how about a message for yourself for the future when you're listening to this? Kids, loved ones, grandkids, somebody you haven't met yet, the audience, you know. So go around and people mostly really do come. They dismiss all the personal stuff and they want to talk to the audience. And the two common things, one is you're good enough.
Yeah.
You're good enough, just like you are. You're okay. You know, you're good. And if you're in a bad place, it's going to get better. You got to ride it out. And there is going to be a tunnel light, you know, and it won't always be the train. It might be the train. You know, you might be up for another go in the barrel. But there is going to be, this too shall pass. And it's, for me, it's been powerful that, you know, you're good enough and it'll be okay. You know, it's going to be okay. No matter how dark things. And I think we talked about the suicides, and I think those are important messages for people that are struggling mentally. Um, you know, the mental health part. And that's the other part that's absolutely taken me by surprise. I started this journey really for myself,
Hmm.
quite honestly. I mean, if I was to be real transparent, it was for myself. So I could help find a speaking platform. I could do writing more books. I could earn an income eventually from the podcast. And it wasn't selfish, but it was just for me. And then what I did find is it's not about me. like we talked, right, several times. It's about them. It's about the
Yes.
guests. And I did have that intention. That was but that was more part of it's part of the leverage or part of the tool, but ultimately it was in my servitude. It wasn't about them at that when I designed it. You know, I
Right.
wanted to hear the story, but ultimately that somehow benefited me. It would allow me to do what I wanted to do with the show, use the platform and build myself. And so what I found out is, you know, it's actually was not about me at all. And it was about the guests. And the thing that's surprised me, as a common thing, is mental health. I've been, and I don't know if you've got a similar thing as your guest, a common underlying theme is somewhere somebody's struggled um, deeply, like hard, suicide thoughts, attempted suicide, drug addiction, alcohol, praying to die another way, right? I'm not going to kill myself, but, you know, if I accidentally get hit, you know, if I accidentally crash into a telephone pole, you know, that's not bad either. So
Hmm.
that reckless behavior, I mean, I've been taken by surprise. So I'm working now on a foundation. I'm trying to build a jar called the Jar Foundation, and it'll be, I'm in the draft mode of putting trying to get the funding together, but putting the materials together to seek, ultimately to get the 501(c), to be a real nonprofit, and then to do some work um, around nonprofit, around charity for mental health, supporting mental health. And I've got a few different ideas how that's going to look. But that's been a common surprised me. I did not see that coming at all. That I would uncover this level of struggles that people go through. And I guess it's natural though, in a funny way. It's normal. I want to say it's normal, but it's not. We don't have the tools for people to succeed.
Yeah. That's why we need more shows like ours So someone out there is going through something that they feel like they can't go on.
Mm,
There's someone in one of these shows that can be an inspiration to you, that can help you to
absolutely.
get past. I have a lot of people that come on with their mental health advocates, and I try to put the resource, like the numbers or the
Mhm.
websites, in the description. So all you got to do is click on that link or make that phone call. Just
I,
know there's someone out there that can help you. Don't give up. God, I still go through those days where I don't want to wake up. It's like if I
mm,
just didn't wake up at all, then okay. Or like you said, hey, if I get hit by a bus, then that's okay. I have those days. The thing is everyone's going to go through that. Just don't stay in that state of mind.
yeah.
Just let that be a what's the word? A fleeting
Hmm.
idea. It was there for a moment. Get rid of it, because we're all going to have that happen.
We're all going, and this is what I've come to the conclusion is we need more tools. We need, we need training. I don't want to say training, but education, training, knowledge on how to do
Hmm.
the self-talk, how to get through that moment. Because we're going to be there, but do we have the tools to get through it? And even though we've done bad, I think a lot of people do it out of they've done, they feel guilty, they feel bad about something they've done, and they just would be happier to start over. And no, man, you look at you. You're a perfect example. What a zigzag journey to get to a place where you're now forced to listen to people. You've been put in this position, right? You are a tool, and it's a
Thanks. You call me a tool.
it's a you're and it's a twisted way to get there, right? I mean, you ended up in the toolbox in a pretty twisted way, but all of a sudden you're in there and you're going, okay, here all right, I can do this, and I have
Yeah.
a, you may help, I don't say you may, I'm sure you have, touching people and helping people that are in those spots, just the fleeting moments, like you said, and you can do stupid shit in a fleeting moment.
Yeah. The thing is why I keep doing what I do. I mean, I started out doing this because, I genuinely
Mm,
love to help other people.
love that.
And then there's those days where I just don't feel like doing it, that I'm
Mm,
like, why am I doing this? And but I've been given a kind of that selfish reason to keep going at times, because I meet so many wonderful people and I get so many wonderful relationships out of it, that it's addictive. So when I don't feel
yeah,
like doing this, I say, well, you know what? I still get to meet so and so, and I'm going to get, I'll probably get another friend out of it. So
it is kind of
sometimes it's,
addicting.
yeah. And so you can say that selfish part is okay to be selfish, because it's helping you to keep going.
Yeah, it's a little fuel, right? It's a
Hmm.
little fuel to keep going. Yeah, totally. I do get that. I haven't done an interview now since December. It'll be almost 2 months now. And I had and we're still releasing shows because we got behind. I had so many episodes. Um, so I'm still live, every couple of days, every day we're posting something, but I'm getting excited to go back. Yeah, I'm just,
Do
I'm a couple of weeks away back in front of the mic with somebody
you
sitting
ever
down.
feel guilty because you're not, it's been so long and you're not doing the interviews?
No, I've been busy.
I do. I get guilty.
You feel like you're, and is it, you feel guilty because you're letting yourself down,
I'm
or
letting others down.
you're letting other people down?
Hmm.
I think the thing that saved me is the fact that we have I'm still posting every day now. So we're still putting shows up. The part I felt guilty too about for a while was being so far behind. I'm just now on Thanksgiving issues. Some of my stuff is Thanksgiving. Just after Thanksgiving. So frig, I'm so far behind, and for me it should be within 2 weeks. So I'll get back to a place where we're basically within a week or within 10 to 14 days of the episode of the interview, we'll go live. I feel bad that I got it. Allowed it to get so far behind.
Mm.
should have taken the break sooner. But I'm just learning. I'm a kid right now. It's not even my first year. I got a old salty dog like you doing this for 3 years.
You know, it's good that you have that stockpile. You know,
Yes, it was.
I had quite a bit stockpiled for a while because I was sometimes doing 3 to 4 interviews a day.
Dang.
And so, and I like to release one a day, at least Monday through Friday.
Yep. That's a good strategy.
But health issues, I wasn't able to do them. And so all that I had stockpiled finally got caught up. And now I'm like, oh, I've got to get these stockpiled again. Because I feel bad I haven't been able to put out one every day now. In fact, go back and re-edit some old stuff and put it out there again. Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any shame in that. I think relaunching is quite okay. Repackaging it, maybe cut it down to something half the time,
and fix mistakes.
Yeah, fix anything you didn't get the first time. I think it's an interesting idea. Yeah, this is it was a fun journey. That first part was proof of concept, that I was doing the right thing, and I had all those interviews set up, and so it was a good, easy city. I'll tell you the story of my second city. So I did big cities. I did the capital city, so 111 cities. So easy is just pick all 48 capitals. Boom, I'm halfway home. I'm almost done. So my next city in Washington, I just looked at this map. I'm just pinch open these maps up, and I'm looking for some cool city name. Where do I want to go? And there's this dam up in Washington called Cooley Dam. One of those Corps of Engineer. Yeah, I know exactly. Whatever, some dam, another dam. And there's a lot of them around the States, apparently. I've come across it. I've seen there's a lot of dams. This Corps of Engineers were busy boys.
Right.
So I had picked the wrong city in a way. There was two. There's a Cooley city and a Cooley Dam, and then there was another place called just Cooley. And somehow I ended up in Cooley. And not even a stoplight.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a few hundred people in the town. So,
well, you should go to Luckenbach.
Luckenbach, Washington.
Luckenbach, Texas.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it like that?
There's a post office and a bar, and that's it.
So that's my kind of town. And it's surprising. I went in. So there was one bar, and so I drove past this rest. It's called Cooligans. Of course, they're like a little Irish, kind of a funny name, Cooley City and Cooligans. So I circled back. I drove past it real slow, and then I did a U-turn in the middle of the town because there's just nothing going on. And I pull in and I get in there, and there's this kind of rough-looking guy about halfway down the bar. And okay, I better give 2 seats. Normally, I just give 1 seat between me and somebody. This one I was like, I better give 2 seats. I don't know what's going on here. Like, this is a small town. It's a bar. He's got a beer. It's 2 p.m. I should be careful. Mind my own business.
Right.
I was going to try to, figure out what the hell's going on. And I had no guests. I rocked up to this town. The first city, everything was fine. Totally set up. Everything's set up. But this one, not a guest. And the team was struggling to find anybody. And I'm like, all right, I got it. I'll find somebody. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. And I rock up this bar, and this guy looks at me, kind of stares at me sideways down the bar. What's in the jar? I'm like, what?
What's in the jar?
And he goes, what's in the jar? And I was like, and I'm like, this is a weird question. And I don't even know. How does he know? And I look outside. He goes, saw your van, saw you drive by. I thought, what the hell is that he's selling? And then I saw you pull in. I thought, damn, that's the jar. What's in the jar? So he's like this really cool guy, and he's just telling me that like his story of looking at me, going, what's going on? So it turns out he's a really interesting guy. He told me his whole life story in a couple of hours, a few beers. We sat there, had some beers, and just the most amazing human put in front of me. The universe just sat this guy right next to me, and he was from the Paradise Fires. So in California, several years ago, there's a city called Paradise City. And there was this tremendous fire that went through the town, flattened the town. Like, it's apocalyptic. If you
Oh,
Google,
wow.
you can Google Paradise City fire, and it's apocalyptic. I don't know how many lives were lost. Not as many lives, because it was, they had it, but they ran, basically all the cars and everything else. And he has a crazy story of how he got out. Really wild story. And that next night, I was at his house doing an interview
Wow.
at his kitchen table.
It was meant to be.
It's meant to be. And he's such a great guy. And his wife was there. She cooked dinner while we talked, and then she sat down while we're waiting for us to finish. As soon as we finished, she jumped up out of her chair and she goes, "You have to come back tomorrow night and interview me, because he answered everything wrong."
How funny.
I was like, "This is I'm like, the jar is magic, right?" Like, at this point now, I'm coming back the second night. Steve cooks for us, for the wife and I, while we do the jar.
That
So I
is
met,
so cool.
yeah, and I just heard their whole story, the whole family story, both their stories, their individual stories, their together stories, and just a lovely couple, and and that, so the first few days were kind of proof of concept. The first city, and the next city, my second city, was proof that I'm doing the right thing, and that there's an audience for it, and there's people looking to tell their story. There's people, I'm sure, listening, looking to hear people's stories. So it's a magic first, my first 8 days. When I finished my first 8 days, I just thought, man, this is going to be a journey, and I'm all in. I'm all in.
My belief is that the craziness that we see that's going on in society is really only brought upon by a small minority of people that are on social media,
Oh
that
yeah,
loves to
absolutely.
bring up all this drama and all this other craziness. And the real sentiment out there is not as bleak as we are led to believe. I know the media, I mean, of course, they love the drama part of it because that sells.
Sells money. Yeah.
But if you get out there and you meet these people individually, like you have, you'll find that we have more in common than that we don't.
Uh,
People people have
Yeah.
a story to tell, and all we have to do is sit down and listen. I guarantee you, I can go down the street and meet one of my neighbors that I've never met before.
For sure.
And before you know it, we're sitting out drinking sweet tea in the front yard, just yakking away. And
I
it
I
doesn't matter
guarantee
what
it.
color they are, what church they go to, nothing.
It's I have been across the table from people I would have made fun of on social media.
Mm-hmm.
People I would have made stupid comments about. Um, and I've listened to them and I've heard their story, and it's changed my view. It has made me realize I am so far closer to these people than I thought. Like, they are just so much more human than I am, or human in another way. It's like, I end up getting back in my van and I'm just like, wow. I mean, that was a crazy episode. Like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, not I did it, but I mean, I can't believe I was allowed to be that person, to sit there and hear the story. And it's touched me. Trans pastor, a pastor at 60 something, came out as a woman and then went through the surgery
Wow.
at 60. That's commitment. And interesting to hear the story from the person's mouth, the whole story from beginning to end, and their feelings, their emotions, the conversations as a kid with parents. Wild. Different, leaves me with a different view, right? A different understanding, because I got to know the person. I didn't listen to the media, social media. I didn't, like you said, we sat down and I found out that me and her, we had a lot in common. We could hang out and have dinner and have some wine, and could have talked over anything for hours. Great human.
when I was a kid, the whole thing about being gay and all that, that was very frowned down and are frowned upon very
Yeah.
badly.
Oh yeah.
And so, of course, we made fun of them and everything
Yeah.
else. But then as I got older and I actually, like you said, got to sit down and talk to someone who was gay,
Yeah. Like
found out
like
what they were really all about, basically just they want to live their life, and they don't want all that attention and everything else. They don't even want that to be the focus of who they are.
yeah, we talked about one guest, right?
Yeah,
Like, I'm gay,
exactly.
but that should let's it doesn't even have to
Yeah.
come up.
It doesn't even have to come into the conversation.
Yeah.
And now I happen to have children who are gay,
Oh, very interesting.
and I love them. Of course, I wanted them to be straight. I wanted them to go have children and bring me
Yeah,
grandkids,
traditional.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing, traditional. Of course, I don't know too many parents who don't wish that, but that's who they are.
Yeah. In the end, as a parent, you wish for them to be happy.
That's all I care about, is them being happy.
Yeah. In the end. But that
And
grows.
I'm sorry, go
Grow,
ahead.
yeah, I was just say that just add on and that grows and changes as you get older, right?
Mhm.
Like you said, when you were a young dad, you might have had one view, and then as your kids grow up and mature, and you made your own mistakes in life. At the end of the day, you just want them to be happy and have a relationship with them.
Exactly. I mean, my grandparents, who grew up in a whole different time, you didn't mix race and all that kind of stuff. Although I don't understand how that worked out, being that part of my family is Cherokee and the other part is European, but
Yeah,
but
exactly. I love that.
right. But the whole thing is my grandparents grew up in a very uh prejudiced time.
Yes, yeah.
And so of course they had those views, but I saw my grandparents change, especially when I got married the first time. My first wife was Hispanic,
Ah, okay.
and it never even became an issue. In fact, caught my grandpa watching those Spanish programs because he wanted to learn some Spanish to be able to talk to my wife in Spanish. You
Grandpa,
see, right? And you see how someone's heart changes just because they get to know someone.
because they get to know somebody. Yeah, and
And
my son loves her.
you know what? We need to acknowledge that and not look at them for who they used to be, but who they are right now. That's the way
So
this
I
country needs
agree.
to be.
I agree with that. There's a lot of sentiment there that people have changed a lot.
Thank you.
I think already people have changed a lot, and things are way, way, way different than they were.
But if they keep
Um,
pushing things are going to go backwards.
yeah, and I think now it's more. Yeah, it's gone the other way in a weird way. Somehow it seems to be going backwards, and I'm not quite sure how that's happened. Um, it's kind of strange, but it does seem to be happening. I hope we find some sensibility around it, around race. I think we lost we lost the plot.
Mm-hmm.
We lost the plot a little bit. Um,
Well, we want to judge everyone for something that happened a long time ago and not for the way things are right now.
yeah, it
And
does seem
that's the
like that.
problem.
And put those, I kind of, one memory that still sticks with me, observation, a life observation. I was a Yankee. I mean, I was a
Well,
full on
that I
Yankee.
can't forgive you for, though, but
Yeah, yeah, that. I mean, you can't, but you also can't. I mean, I was just born into it. I kind of rectified it by going to school in the South. I
there you
love the
go.
South. And I'd say I was in South Carolina, 1980. That's a long
Mhm.
time ago in the South. And I never saw any racism and I was in a frat with some of the goodest old boys from the smallest towns all across the state, north, south, east, west. Never saw anything racist behavior. Words sometimes, for sure, some words, language, but just ignorant stuff and just, college kid stuff. I say not just isn't a way to forgive it or to excuse it, but just it wasn't overt targeted racism, right? It was just stupid shit they were saying. I don't think they, but I never saw any racist behavior, which is weird because I never thought of that until now, 40 years later, when I'm going, but wait a minute, I don't remember people being racist. I was in the South. I'm not black. So I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. And I've interviewed plenty of people who have said they had seen racism or been a victim of it. But also I just did an interview this morning, not an interview, but I was doing a review of a podcast, and it's a black woman, grew up in a small town in North Carolina. She said, Kenny, I never saw any race. I never been a victim. I went to school with white kids, brown kids, yellow kids, black kids. Said never happened.
When you look for something hard enough, you're going to find it. And that's the problem. People are looking for something and they will find it if that's what they really want to find.
Yeah. And put a spotlight on it and then put it on Instagram.
Is there racist people out there? Well, of course there are.
Fuck yes.
You're never going to get rid of it. I don't care how hard you try. You can make it against the law and there's still going to be people out there that are racist.
Well, there's just tribalism in general.
Are we not supposed to stereotype people? So if there is, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is nature, but we're not supposed to stereotype people. So if happens to be one person out of 100 that happens to be a racist, you can't label everyone in that group a racist.
Agree. I totally agree. And that's kind of what happens. Like I said, I hope we find our path.
I think if you boil it down to the individuals out there, you'll find more people feel like we do than what you see on social media and the media.
Yeah, it's also my experience. I mean, you and I have that unique experience of talking to people, a lot of people, and outside of our finite network, right? We have an infinite network in this weird way. And I think many people are tuned into only their network, right? On Twitter, you follow only people that say what you like. On Facebook, you delete your friends that that don't comment on your posts. So you end up in a very, even though it's social and it's got this wide appearance of a wide network, actually we end up in listening and in living in a bubble.
Yep.
And like I said, seeing what we want to see. And seeing what we're getting, and you want to validate your opinions.
And the reason why I do what I do and to help others is I don't care about all that political stuff when I invite somebody on. I have people on, I told you this before we started, I've had people on that think exactly opposite of what I do, whether it be politics or religion. Yeah. But the whole point is there's someone out there that needs help in one way or another. And if my guest has that, an inspirational story or some advice, that's all that matters. And that's why I do what I do, is to help others, not to get political clicks. My opinions are going to come out from time to time. And if somebody wants to not listen to me anymore or watch my videos anymore, I can't help that. I'm not going to apologize for who I am. I'm just going to try to focus on what I'm here for.
I love it.
And that's all I got to say about that.
That's all I got to say about that. That is one of my favorite.
And you said you were a Gamecock?
Yeah, as a Gamecock.
One of my buddies from high school was their linebackers coach when Steve Spurrier was there.
Oh, okay.
So we have something else kind of, I guess you'd say, in common.
Yeah. Absolutely. A few degrees of separation. It's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a real thing when you look at it. We're that close. Yeah, it was a great time. I mean, down school there, it was a great time, and I had a chance to go back last month or December, and go hang out and see a few people and do a few interviews in the old town. It was great. It was great, and made it over here to Atlanta, sitting out, hanging out, beautiful little, my sister's place, getting a little rest in. And I'm starting to get anxious though. Like the road's calling and the sun's, now the sun's coming out in Georgia. And
There you go.
even though it's February, I'm in the sunroom. It's getting hot. So I don't think I can hang out here much longer. It's going to be time to move soon.
Well, I've got family in Smyrna.
Oh, Smyrna. Yeah, it's not far. Not far.
Well,
Nice part. Actually, it's a nice part of the state. The state actually is quite pretty. Georgia's quite a beautiful state. It's got a great coast and all the way up to almost a little bit hilly. Almost a little bit hilly, but a little bit too far south for the Carolina mountains.
but you
Well,
said
what
you're
else?
coming to Austin, so you're coming to Hill Country.
I'm coming back to Hill Country. So I got from here, I go to, if there's any listeners in Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, anybody up in there, Missouri, give me
That's
a
right,
call.
Missouri.
You'll find me in the links down below, and or Ken Stearns, just Google me. You'll find me on LinkedIn, or you'll find me somewhere on Instagram or something, and send me a note if you want to be a guest. Love to chat, and we're for sure going to get to. I mean, I'm for sure stop by you. It won't be our last meeting. At least we can do it in your house there.
Hey, I got my office right here, so, and it'll be easy to remember my town because I live in Kyle.
Oh, that's
So,
wild. Kyle and
yep.
Kyle.
And I live pretty close to Kyle Parkway, so.
It's crazy.
Man, this has been a great chat, and we've got to do this again. And I do want to get on your show.
It's going to happen. I'll set you up with the team. I'll get your email and stuff. Send your email to the team and get you in there. Well, maybe we can just start. I won't be that long, and I'll be able to set dates. Won't be that long. We'll be able to at least put something down temporary. At least get it in the calendar.
Well, I know there's so much more we could touch on, but we've run out of time.
Yeah, keep it fresh. Keep it tight.
Yeah, keep it fresh. Sometimes it's going to be a pretty smooth conversation. Sometimes, topics are going to come up, but we got to talk. That's the thing. We need to talk.
It's great, and the other one is listen.
Exactly.
I think, if you're in a good position to listen, try to do more of it. Listen more. Ask people questions. Ask people about, be genuinely interested in other people. It's a great way to be a good human.
Yes.
And, you are good enough, and this too shall pass.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Amen to that. Man, thanks so much, Kyle.
Oh, man, it's been my pleasure. It really has. I had a great time.
It's good fun. And I'll see you in a couple of months, maybe 8 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks.
For sure. Well, I'm going to put all your info in the description so people can just click on it and go straight to it. And I can't thank you enough, man. We're definitely going to do this again.
Peace out, my friend.
And I also want to thank all you folks out there for my new listeners. I hope you'll come back. Please hit that subscribe button. For my regulars, I can't thank you enough for making this happen. It's because of you I get to do this. So until the next one, everyone, please take care. For heaven's sakes, be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network